What is up? GoodMicWork back at you with episode 437, here to give you a review on this past week's Monday Night Raw and SmackDown Live for June 19th and June 20th. Neither one of these shows were really overly spectacular, although they both had their moments. Raw had some big news break, and we had a big return, and we had a heel turn. And SmackDown, of course, is right off the heels of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and there was to be some big announcements made on that show as well. But overall, neither one of those shows were really mind-blowing or earth-shattering, and to be honest with you, this commentary really won't be either. I'm going to kind of briefly review both shows and give some opinions on it, and then I'm going to get out of here. I'm working on a lot of other stuff right now for the channel. I must devote some more time this week to finishing up that Q&A that I've been promising everybody, and in a day or two, I'm going to have a Chris Benoit video coming to you as well. So a lot of content coming to the channel in the next few days and weeks, so I'm going to try to make this review as brief as possible. So let's jump right into Raw first. But before we do that, I want to begin with some breaking news. I actually have to add these comments in after the fact, because during the editing of this commentary, some huge news just came across the Twitter machine here, and that is Mauro Ranallo is returning to the WWE. He's going to be joining the NXT commentary team. And I think this is unbelievable news. I did not see this coming after all of the controversy, the way he left with JBL and the bullying rumors and all that shit. I didn't think Ranallo would ever be back. And this is a pretty brilliant compromise. I mean, if the two parties were open to working together again, what better place for Mauro than NXT? He'll be able to do his thing in NXT a lot better than he was able to do it on SmackDown, and this is probably a better gig for him anyway in the long run. And a big part of me wonders how much his gig with the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight contributed to his returning to the WWE. Maybe once he was announced for that, WWE was like, we gotta call him up and work something out. We want to have this guy back, because you know WWE wants a piece of that action. So to have one of their own being the person to call that epic historic fight between those two is probably something very attractive to WWE. So they might have reached out to him and say, look, what's it going to take for us to bring you back? What if we move you away from SmackDown and put you in NXT? You're still in the company, but you're not going to have to deal with any of the bullshit that you did before. And maybe he said, what the hell, let's do it. And think about how great the takeovers are going to be now. I've always liked the various NXT commentary teams that they have done, but imagine how much better it's going to be now with Mauro there and his Mamma Mia's and all of that shit. It is perfect for NXT and was probably the better place for him all along. So for me personally, I could not be happier about this news. This is wonderful. I have no idea when he's going to start. This news is brand new and fresh, so there's no information on exactly when we'll see him for the first time in NXT. Maybe the next set of tapings, maybe the next pay-per-view, maybe after the Mayweather fight, who knows, or maybe right away, like within the next week. So very exciting news for all of us wrestling fans. I can't imagine that there is one single fan out there that would be disappointed about this latest turn of events involving Mauro Ranallo. So Mauro, welcome back. Each and every one of us are thrilled to have you back in the WWE and cannot wait to hear your work on NXT. So let's go back now to what I originally wanted to talk about first, and that is, of course, Monday Night Raw for June 19th. The show opened up with Roman Reigns' big SummerSlam announcement. This was announced the previous week. They said that Roman Reigns was going to have something big to say regarding SummerSlam and what his plans for the show are. So Roman Reigns comes out there to his typical Roman Reigns reaction. Everybody's booing their asses off. And he cuts what kind of is a heel promo. And I know we all have our criticisms of Roman Reigns on the mic. I agree with everybody, that he's a little bit boring in his delivery, just kind of makes fans yawn from time to time. But despite all of those criticisms, one compliment I will give Roman Reigns is he always seems very comfortable on the mic. He never seems nervous. He never seems flustered. He never seems out of place or, not able to handle the stage. Roman Reigns is incredibly calm and he's always very comfortable on the mic. Unfortunately, most of what he says sucks and the fans just puke at it all the time. But this particular promo on Raw, I didn't entirely hate because he was very heelish in it. I mean, he started talking about how awesome he is, all the people that he's defeated, how nobody can defeat him one-on-one, even rolling through some names of guys that he's beaten. Talked about how he main evented WrestleMania 3 years in a row. He retired The Undertaker. He says that he makes the rules and the ring is his yard, and he is challenging the winner of Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar at Great Balls of Fire to face him at SummerSlam. So basically, he anoints himself the number one contender for the WWE title after Great Balls of Fire. which then, of course, prompts Samoa Joe to come out. And as soon as his music hits, he gets this crazy babyface reaction. It's so hilarious how all of this is working out. And he gets right in Roman Reigns' face, shows no fear, and says, hey, for all those guys you said you defeated, you've never beat me. As a matter of fact, I've beat you. Roman Reigns doesn't seem to be intimidated by this, tells Samoa Joe that he's not a Samoan, he's just Joe, which prompted a shit ton of memes and pictures of the old Just Joe character from the WWE back in the Attitude Era. And after a few insults back and forth, Joe attacks with a headbutt, and him and Roman Reigns start brawling all over the ring and outside of the ring. Eventually, Roman Reigns fights Samoa Joe off, and he retreats. And that leads to a Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns match later on in the show. So why don't we go ahead and skip to that? We've got Joe versus Roman again. And, Joe has really been racking up the victories here. And I was really hoping that he would have a big one here against Roman Reigns heading in to Great Balls of Fire to face Brock. So after a grueling match, the cameras cut to backstage, and up on the big screen, you see an ambulance backing in to the arena, and you immediately knew what was going to happen. You immediately knew who was going to be coming out of that ambulance, and Roman Reigns is looking up on the screen, and then, of course, both doors swing open, and Braun Strowman is there, and he jumps out of the ambulance. And Roman Reigns kind of can't believe it because the kayfabe storyline that the WWE was reporting was that Braun Strowman was going to be out of action for like 6 to 8 months with his elbow injury. And we all kind of speculated that the reason they were doing that is so when he does return, he'll look like an even bigger monster who cannot be hurt and apparently heals in a matter of weeks from severe injuries. So Braun Strowman is back there jumping out of the ambulance, which is just enough to keep Roman Reigns distracted, and Samoa Joe catches him from behind, puts him in the coquina clutch, and chokes him out. He basically wins via submission or via knockout, I guess, when he just choked Roman Reigns unconscious. So that's 2 victories now for Samoa Joe over Roman Reigns, and a big one heading into Great Balls of Fire. The fact that it wasn't totally clean, who fucking cares? I didn't see too much complaining about that on Twitter, but I did see a little bit, and Jesus, what a dumb thing to complain about. That's not even important. What's important here is that Braun Strowman returns to continue his storyline with Roman Reigns, and Samoa Joe got another huge victory on Monday Night Raw, rolling into Great Balls of Fire, and I am not completely ruling out Samoa Joe defeating Brock Lesnar, considering the role that he is on. But we'll probably talk more about Samoa Joe and Brock next week, because I believe Brock Lesnar is advertised to be on next week's Raw, which I think is from Los Angeles. And you know they've got some pretty big plans for everybody next week, considering the market that they are in. So we'll discuss a little bit more about Joe and Brock after we see what goes down next week on Monday Night Raw. But after Roman Reigns is choked out unconscious by Samoa Joe, Joe leaves, and then Braun Strowman's music hits, and he comes down to the ring, gets on the mic, and says, I told you I wasn't finished with you, and then slams Roman and beats him up a little bit, and then announces that he is challenging Roman to an ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire. This is the match that we thought we were going to get at Extreme Rules before Braun Strowman was injured. So now we're just getting it at Great Balls of Fire instead, and I'm relieved. I'm so happy that Braun Strowman is back, because the longer he stayed gone, the more difficult it was going to make the WWE's plans for Great Balls of Fire and SummerSlam. So now you got to think that even though Roman Reigns has challenged the winner of Brock and Samoa Joe, he might not necessarily get that title match. I thought all the way back at the beginning of the year that we would probably see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, but then the story of WWE wanting to wait until next year's WrestleMania to do this match kind of changed all of that up. And then there was talk of Braun Strowman getting the title shot at SummerSlam. That can actually still happen now. Braun Strowman could defeat Roman Reigns in that ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire. Brock Lesnar could defeat Samoa Joe, and then you can get Braun and Brock at SummerSlam, which wouldn't be a horrible match. You could also get maybe a rematch between Roman and Joe at SummerSlam, with Roman getting his victory back, which I know the fans wouldn't love that much, but I guess that's one direction they can go. Or they can have Roman Reigns win the ambulance match, and he does in fact get the title shot against potentially Samoa Joe. I don't think it would be Samoa Joe because if Joe wins, he's going to have a rematch with Brock. And I mentioned all along that this rumor of it being a one-off or a one and done between Joe and Brock, do not buy into that rumor, because do you seriously believe that WWE is not above changing their plans? I mean, what if Joe and Brock go out there and tear the fucking house down? What if it's one of the greatest matches we've ever seen? You think the WWE is going to want to end it there? Of course not. They're going to want to get a return on this, and they can have a rematch at SummerSlam. So at this point, I think we are potentially going to see a match between either Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar, or Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe, or Braun Strowman and Brock Lesnar, or Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar. There's a lot of different things they can do here. We'll just have to wait and see what goes down at Great Balls of Fire. So really cool to see Braun Strowman back. The fans just popped so hard for him when he came out. I think, considering how good the previous work between Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns was, I think their ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire could be a lot of fun, and I actually really do hope that is the blow-off. They have worked a lot of pay-per-views, I mean, dating all the way back to Fastlane, so for this match to finally end it would be fitting, although I wouldn't completely rule out them doing one more. And it's definitely a way for one of these guys to lose without actually having to be pinned or submit. The biggest angle, or one of the biggest angles on Raw, was the main event segment. Earlier on in the night, Kurt Angle announced that he's going to go out to the ring and he's going to reveal who has been attacking Enzo and Cass. There's all sorts of suspects like the Revival and the Big Show. So you fast forward all the way to the main event. Kurt Angle comes out there and he calls out all parties involved. So Enzo and Cass are out there, Revival's out there, Big Show's out there. Kurt Angle winds up dismissing the Big Show, I guess. You know, Big Show is no longer a suspect and he leaves. The Revival is being addressed by Kurt Angle, and he says, you guys all have really good alibis. And then Kurt Angle starts to say, I vow to find out who it is. I thought Kurt Angle already knew who it was, but just as he's saying he's going to get to the bottom of it, Corey Graves interrupts him from the announce table, gets on the mic. He says, Kurt Angle, I've got some news, I've got some information for you that you might be interested in, and I think I can clear up this whole mess. And he goes, let's go to the screen. I've obtained some security footage of a couple of weeks ago, and it was the week that Cass was attacked. I think it was like the second week that he was attacked. And I mentioned this, you know, in my commentaries leading up to this, because we've all kind of suspected that this would wind up being Cass anyway. And I was saying to everybody that Cass probably staged all of these attacks. Corey Graves goes to the video footage, and we see Cass kind of looking around backstage, and he lays himself down and pretends to be injured. And the funny thing is, it reminds me, I mean, they took this idea, I've even mentioned this in recent commentaries, they took this idea from Shawn and Triple H. I even predicted a scenario like this, where Cass turns out to be the guy that attacks him, and then he says, you're damn right I did it. Just like Triple H said to Shawn Michaels when Shawn was thrown through the car window, and then Triple H was vowing to find out who it was, and then security footage revealed that it was Triple H, and he says, you're damn right it was me. And it's kind of like that same thing. It reminded me a lot of that. And it's interesting too, Corey Graves, you know, what does his last name start with? Starts with a G. Remember GTV? What if it was Corey Graves that was behind GTV this whole time? Graves TV. That would be kind of funny. They should have had Corey Graves take credit for that. But it's interesting that Corey Graves was the one that breaks this news to everybody. Kurt Angle is the general manager. Kurt Angle is the guy that should have everything at his disposal as far as people looking into this for him and investigating, you know, even the police if he wants to get them involved. How an announcer got all of this information, I have no idea. And the heel turn was done well. I really have to say that I enjoyed the final segment because, like I said, we could all see the writing on the wall. We all had a pretty good idea that it was going to be Cass in the end that was responsible for this, because from the minute they've come onto the WWE roster, the main roster, I've said they have got to split these guys up at some point. Cass is too big, he's too talented, he's got too much potential to be in this goofy-ass tag team. It was fine at first, it was entertaining, Enzo and Cass were very over, but something like that simply cannot last forever. And I predicted almost essentially exactly what they did. I said at some point Cass is going to snap. At some point Cass is going to tell Enzo that he's holding him back and he could be a huge star if it weren't for him. And that's pretty much what Cass did. After he admitted to the attacks, he goes, I've wanted to kick your ass for so long. I've wanted to slap your stupid face. Every single night we come out here and you're acting like an idiot. I've never been a champion in WWE because of you. And it was a great promo and an even better reaction by Enzo because, you know, you felt for Enzo. It actually made you feel for him. Enzo shed a tear, for fuck's sake. How awesome was that? Tears rolling down Enzo's face. And it probably was emotional, even though it was kayfabe and everything. This is a big end of an era for Enzo. These guys came through NXT together. They've been a team for a long time, come up through the ranks, and they're very close friends. And to have their alliance end, you know, in real life is happening as well. They're about to push Cass here, and Enzo might be left in limbo. So it probably was a very sad moment for him that he's been teaming with this guy for a few years now, and it's finally ending. So Enzo channeled all that emotion and was able to cry on camera, which I thought was great. And my only critique of this is that Cass didn't beat up Enzo enough. I guess because Kurt Angle was in the ring, after Cass was done cutting that scathing promo on Enzo, he just hits him with a big boot. Enzo takes a vicious bump, and Cass kind of walks off, and Kurt Angle is, you know, over there trying to help out Enzo. So maybe if Kurt Angle hadn't been in the ring, Cass would have really killed Enzo and put him in the hospital and the whole deal. But instead it was one boot, and he walks away, and that was the end of it. Cass is going to get the heel turn now. Cass is going to get the push, and Cass is awesome. I'm a big Cass fan. I see a lot of potential in him. I've said before that he reminds me of a 7-foot, 300-pound Edge. He kind of has that look to him, and I think he's marketable, and I think he's decent enough on the mic, and I think he's going to be a pretty badass heel. Now, I don't know what they're going to do with him character-wise. I don't know if he's going to have a complete makeover as far as ring gear and stuff goes. He's definitely got to lose the soft shirt and all of that, but I wouldn't mind seeing Cass even dress a little bit differently. Don't go crazy like Baron Corbin, but maybe do a little bit more than just the boots and the tights and the t-shirt with the sleeves cut off. You know, I think maybe he needs a little bit more than that, and maybe his character can evolve and he can be a big deal on the main roster and be in the main event picture. He's certainly big enough. You know, you start thinking of Cass and Samoa Joe, or Cass and Brock Lesnar, or Cass and Braun Strowman matches. Those could be pretty good, provided Cass is pushed properly and gets over to that level. I think there could be a lot of potential for Cass. So me personally, I'm just happy the team is finally broken up. I've been calling for this for a year. I hope that it works out for Cass, and I hope that it works out for Enzo as well. And part of me thinks that the Big Show was involved in this to give Enzo something to do, because you have to realize that even though Cass turned on Enzo, you can't really have a series of matches now. A series of grudge matches and blow-off matches between Enzo and Cass, because Cass is going to murder Enzo. This thing cannot be a contest. So normally when you have one tag team partner turn on another, they feud with each other for months. But these two guys probably can't realistically feud together because it's an uneven match and Cass will kill him. So maybe the Big Show is involved and he can kind of fill in for Cass, and Enzo and Big Show can form a tag team, and Big Show can have that role that Cass had and start being the one to watch Enzo's back, and he can be the one to have some matches with Cass, and maybe Big Show is the guy that Cass defeats as his first big opponent to have him get over. You know, Big Show, I'm sure at this stage of his career, would be more than happy to lay down for a young guy like Cass, and that's probably what we're going to see here. And his involvement with Enzo will continue Enzo's gimmick and give him something to do. And then beyond that, whatever they do after Big Show, I don't know what the hell Enzo's going to wind up doing. If he can be a credible single star, if he could maybe go to the cruiserweight division even, I don't know. I just don't really know what is in Enzo's future. His personality and his charisma will probably keep him employed in WWE. He might have to move into more of a managerial role and maybe wrestling sometimes, maybe even be an announcer. I don't know what the fuck he's going to do, but I think Cass is going to be the guy that's going to move on to do much bigger things in the WWE than Enzo. But I wish both of them well. You know, that team was fun to watch in NXT, and it was moderately fun to watch in the WWE as well, but it was time for it to end, and I'm happy that it did. And speaking of Corey Graves, too, you know, for him to be the one to reveal to everybody that it was Cass behind these attacks, and then you also realize that he's involved with Kurt Angle with these mystery text messages. There's also been rumors of maybe some sort of a storyline between him and Bayley. Graves is getting a bigger role in the WWE, and I'm happy for that, because I remember watching that ESPN thing on him, and he had the concussions, and WWE wouldn't let him wrestle anymore, but they were going to give him an opportunity as an on-air commentator in an on-air role, and he's done great with it. Corey Graves is really good at his job. He's a great commentator. He's a pretty good character, and if they want to get him more involved in the show, I think he's very capable of that. So at this point, I don't have any problem with Corey Graves' involvement in some of the storylines on Raw, provided WWE doesn't fuck all this up and make it stupid. I really think it could be a good opportunity for Corey Graves because I find him entertaining. As far as what else we saw on Raw, some of the bigger angles to take place, the Dean Ambrose-Miz situation was pretty good. Let's backtrack here and talk about Finn Balor and Bo Dallas first. Elias Sampson is in the ring singing one of his songs. He's interrupted by Finn Balor, who comes out to the ring for his match, and Elias just leaves. He doesn't even brawl with him, doesn't get in his face, just picks up his guitar and walks away and lets Finn Balor have the ring. Bo Dallas comes out to have his match with Finn Balor, and of course, Bo's not winning this. Finn Balor winds up getting the pin there, and later on, he's then attacked by the Drifter backstage in an interview with Charlie, so I guess Finn Balor and the Drifter are going to be working together now. They might have a match at Great Balls of Fire, I suppose, and nice to see Devon come on screen for a quick moment there, because of course he's a backstage agent. We then go to Bo Dallas, who's in the locker room, down on himself for losing to Finn Balor. He's approached by Curtis Axel, who's trying to give him a pep talk and says, hey, I've always believed in you. I've always believed, and you need to pick yourself back up, and blah, blah, blah. The two of them are then interrupted by The Miz, who kind of insults them both at first, talks about how bad they suck. Kurt kind of gets in The Miz's face and says, watch what you say, and The Miz is like, what? What are you going to do? You going to hit me? That's not going to solve anything, because even if you hit me, next week I'm going to be out there having a main event segment, and you're going to be in the back having a match with catering. I fucking loved that line, had me cracking up. But he basically proposes to Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel that he needs an entourage. He goes, hey, if you join up with me, I can make you stars. I can get you TV time, I can get you movie roles, because I guess they were all in one of the Marine movies or something. He basically sells them on the fact that if they join up with him, they will become huge stars. And of course, later on, The Miz has got to have his big apology ceremony to Maurice for fucking everything up last week and destroying her grandfather clock and all that. He's in the doghouse, isn't getting any pussy right now, and he's trying to make up with her. So he comes out there and he's got a brand new big present in the ring. Maurice comes out there, he is kissing her ass. He opens up the big present to reveal the grandfather clock. He says he watched YouTube videos on how to repair it, and he used glue and tape and all this shit, which was pretty funny, and he completely restored the grandfather clock and gave it some upgrades. We've got two giant bears in the ring again, and of course what we saw last week with the bear was ridiculous, with, Dean Ambrose putting the bear head on the Intercontinental Champion, which I thought was dumb. So the bears are back, and they're holding signs that say, like, I'm sorry and I love you or whatever to Maurice, and Dean Ambrose then comes out, and I guess The Miz goes to move Maurice out of the way, and she spills champagne on herself, so now The Miz is even more trouble. She's pissed off, and she even goes to slap him, and she leaves, and Dean Ambrose then tries to attack The Miz, and he is attacked by the two bears. So the two bears attack Dean Ambrose, beat the shit out of him, take their masks off to reveal that they are, in fact, Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. I think we could all kind of see that coming. And The Miz has basically formed an entourage. The Miz now has a faction. Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel have joined up with The Miz. I think this is great for them because it gives them some TV time. We hardly ever see these guys, but I'm not totally convinced that this is something that's going to really benefit them. I think we've seen this enough times where two guys that the WWE is not using at all get some sort of small, quick push, and it quickly dissipates. The faction with Wade Barrett and Rusev and Sheamus and all those guys, I don't remember what they're called. But look how long that lasted, and it didn't really benefit anybody from being in that faction. And now Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel are with The Miz, which is good in a way, but I just don't know how long something like this could last. His entourage is not that impressive. He's got a couple of jobbers walking around with him. So, it's not like this is evolution. It's not like this is DX or Legacy, which is sad because I wish they weren't jokes. Bo Dallas is a former NXT champion. Kurt Axel is a former Intercontinental champion. These guys should not be jokes, but they are. So maybe them being involved with The Miz and being a part of his entourage will help them. I'm just not holding my breath on that. And I did read a story on one of the websites talking about how The Miz's entourage was most likely formed because of Mike and Maria's debut on SmackDown. And I guess WWE didn't want to have two power couples on opposite brands, so they added some people to The Miz's entourage. And of course, Maurice is still pissed off. She ran off. It's not like she was in on this whole thing, I don't think. They might reveal next week that she was, and she'll be a big part of this entourage. But I guess at this point, The Miz still has to make up with her and get her back on his side. I hope they don't do some sort of a face turn with Maurice, although they might. But I would like to see Maurice stay with The Miz and stay with Axel and Dallas if it was up to me. we had a Seth Rollins and Bray Wyatt segment, which was really nothing special. Seth Rollins comes out to the ring and starts cutting a promo, hyping up and plugging the fact that he's on the cover of the new WWE 2K18 video game or whatever. So they went with Seth this year, which is great for him. I'm not a video game player, so I really don't know much about that, but definitely happy for him. And Bray Wyatt comes up on the big screen and starts doing some back and forth with Seth Rollins on the mic. And then Bray Wyatt says that he's coming out. He blows out his lantern, makes his big, long 5-minute entrance, only to have Seth Rollins dive off of the top rope as soon as the lights come on and take out Bray Wyatt and walk away. So a lot of talk, one offensive move, and that was the end between those two. And clearly they're going to have some sort of a match at Great Balls of Fire. We had Sasha Banks taking on Nia Jax that ended in a clusterfuck. Alexa Bliss is on commentary for this. She's confronted by Emma, who chases her all the way down to the ring. Alexa Bliss ran off on Emma last week in a tag team match or whatever, so Emma's pissed. Chases her into the ring. Brawl ensues with everybody. Mickie James and Dana Brooke come out there as well, and they're all fighting. And then Bayley's music hits, and she makes her return. She hits the ring and starts beating the hell out of everybody, and all the baby faces stand tall in the end. So Bayley is back, but she didn't get a very big crowd reaction. She's been off TV for a couple of weeks now, and when her music played, it's not like the fans lost their minds or anything. They were like, yay, Bayley's back, big fucking deal. She's a loser now in our book, and WWE has really demolished this poor character, so we'll have to see what the future holds for Bayley. Couple of other matches we saw on Raw as well. We saw the Hardy Boys beat Gallows and Anderson. Tozawa beat TJP. He's still being recruited by Titus to join the Titus brand. And I think on 205 Live, he actually did join the Titus brand. I saw the clip of him in the suit, and he had this VIP treatment and all of this. So this Titus brand storyline is just something that does not interest me at all. And I apologize. I hardly ever talk about this when I do my Raw reviews. I just don't care. And Titus and Apollo Crews would actually have a match later on in the night with tag team champions Sheamus and Cesaro, and Sheamus and Cesaro would defeat them. So all in all, not the greatest Raw, but still a very good heel turn by Cass. Even though it was predictable, I think it was still done in a way that was enjoyable. And of course, Samoa Joe getting the victory over Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman returning, and us getting a little bit more of an idea of what we're going to see or potentially see at SummerSlam. I wouldn't say Raw was all that bad. SmackDown, however, was also not a bad show. We had some big announcements on this. Just a lot like Raw, not a great show, but significant in a lot of ways as well, especially the beginning. And I gotta hand it to Carmella. I've never really been a fan of her in general. She reminds me of one of the girls we would see back in the days of the Divas when none of them could wrestle, but she's not half bad, and she really came through in the opening of SmackDown. And I think it was a make or break moment for her. I mean, they gave her the briefcase, and she went out there and opened SmackDown to cut a promo and cut a great one. She really rose to the occasion there. This was her chance, and she killed it. She absolutely nailed it. Great promo, half-shoot promo as well. Talked about how she's been overlooked forever. She was the last pick in the draft, called the fans pathetic and did all the typical heel stuff and did it great. I mean, she was very fluent in the way she was talking. She never stumbled around. She never botched anything. It was almost a perfect promo by Carmella, and I have to give her a lot of credit for that promo. Now, later on in the night, Daniel Bryan was going to be coming out to announce his decision on what to do about the finish of the Money in the Bank ladder match, and Carmella was saying in her opening promo that there really shouldn't be a decision to make. There's no rule that says somebody can't take the briefcase and hand it to her, and she doesn't care how she won it. She just won it, and that should be that. So she basically makes her opinions known and pleads her case. Daniel Bryan then comes out later on in the show, invites all the girls out there, and every one of them get an opportunity to say a couple of words on the mic, including Tamina. And how about WWE makes a new rule? Tamina never speaks. Ever. At all. Don't let her. I don't know what she even fucking said. She seemed about as out of place on a mic as James Ellsworth in a Mr. Universe competition. I mean, she should never be allowed to speak at all. And really, it was all pointless chatter with all the girls. And Daniel Bryan does acknowledge the fact that there's really no rules in these matches, and who's to say somebody can't come up there and get it, but ultimately decides that next week on SmackDown, we're going to have a new Money in the Bank match. They're going to do the whole thing again. I thought they were going to do a situation like Royal Rumble 1997 when Austin won and then Gorilla Monsoon came out the next night and says, if Austin thinks that tainted victory is going to get him a title shot, he's sorely mistaken. We're going to do this whole thing again. And he made the Final Four the next month, where the final 4 guys in the Rumble were going to have a match, an over-the-top rope match, to determine the new number 1 contender. That would eventually turn into a title match after Shawn lost a smile. But I thought they were going to do something like that. I thought Daniel Bryan would make a match between the 4 other women, maybe like a fatal 4-way. The winner of that would then face Carmella with the briefcase on the line. That's kind of what I thought they were going to do. But instead, Daniel Bryan just remakes the match. And there has been some talk that possibly this was a split-second decision. Maybe the WWE didn't like all of the backlash from the finish of the Money in the Bank match, and they decided to redo it to appease the fans, because I defended that finish on my Money in the Bank reaction video. If you've not yet seen that video, click the link in the top right-hand corner. It's right there. I really didn't see that big of a problem with the way the match ended, because I thought it was a creative finish. I thought it was something different, and it was professional wrestling, and we've seen shit like this all the time. I mean, for fuck's sake, Triple H tried to have sex with a corpse, and we're mad that some chinless, inbred monkey grabbed the briefcase in a women's Money in the Bank ladder match. You know, it's not that I didn't understand the fans' complaints. It's just I didn't care. You know, I literally did not care at all that James Ellsworth grabbed the briefcase, although I do understand that, yes, it's a tiny bit fucked up that a man grabs the briefcase in the very first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match. I understand that that's annoying, and that can definitely be a good reason to not like the finish. It just personally didn't bother me. So maybe WWE got so much flack for this, they just decided to redo the match, and they might wind up having Carmella win it anyway. And I think she will. I think she should hold on to the briefcase at this point. It would be silly to give the briefcase to somebody else. Maybe they just want to make the finish right and make sure that if Carmella is going to be the one to hold the briefcase, she unhooks it herself. And that would add to the storyline of her proving herself. Because imagine that. Imagine if Carmella comes out next week on SmackDown, wins the Money in the Bank ladder match legit. Imagine the promo she'll cut the week after that. She's really going to have a big head. And I saw later on Talking Smack, she's whining about it. And Ellsworth is like, don't worry about it, I got a plan. And Daniel Bryan, he goes, no, you don't. You don't have any fucking plans. You got no business being out there. As a matter of fact, you are banned from ringside. So Ellsworth will not be at ringside next week during the Money in the Bank ladder match. So this could go a couple of different ways. WWE could simply do the match again, have a girl unhook it so the fans will calm down, or they can have Ellsworth get really creative and still find a way to help Carmella win. And I tweeted out something during SmackDown on Tuesday that they should have Ellsworth up in the rafters with a pair of bolt cutters, and maybe he's up there and he cuts the cord that's suspending the briefcase over the ring, and it falls right into Carmella's hands. And then she unhooks it from there. She could unhook it from the ring mat. You know, she technically still did unhook it, and Ellsworth didn't break any rules because he wasn't at ringside. He was over the ring, so that's totally different. So if they got really creative like that, I think I would laugh my ass off, but a big part of me thinks they are just going to redo this match to give Carmella the briefcase in the correct way so the fans will stop freaking out. But like I said, the finish, although I understand everybody's complaints with it, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying as wrestling fans, we complain about so much shit. And for me, it's kind of like pick your battles. So this was one I was willing to let go. To me, it was an entertaining finish and something we really haven't seen before. And it was a surprise. And it gave Carmella an opportunity to be champion, you know, and that's what SmackDown is all about, giving people opportunities. That show has seen a lot of underneath talent rise to the top in the past year. Dean Ambrose, AJ Styles, Jinder Mahal have all been WWE champion for the first time ever on that brand over the past year. And now Baron Corbin is the briefcase holder. He'll probably get a run with the belt. And, you know, the women, the same thing. So at the end of the day, I hope Carmella keeps the briefcase next week in that match. As far as what else we saw on SmackDown, we saw Kevin Owens do an open challenge, a U.S. title open challenge or Face of America open challenge, and he's specifically challenging someone from Dayton. And when he said Dayton, I was like, holy shit, SmackDown must be at the Nutter Center. That's where the very first ever King of the Ring in 1993 took place when Bret Hart won and Yokozuna beat Hulk Hogan for the title. I've always liked that arena. So Owens is announcing an open challenge, but only to somebody from Dayton. And AJ Styles comes out to accept the challenge. He goes, let's go. He goes, no, you're not from Dayton. You can't face me for the belt. And then Chad Gable, of all people, one half of American Alpha, comes out to the ring and says, I would like to challenge you for the title because I just moved to Dayton this morning. And AJ Styles is like, great, let's ring the bell right now. And the referee rings the bell. So that whole segment was kind of stupid. AJ Styles wanted the match. He allowed Chad Gable to come in the ring and boldface lie about moving to Dayton and get the title match. Why didn't AJ just say, I moved to Dayton today too, moved here this morning. Why don't we make this a triple threat? AJ seemed perfectly fine with allowing Gable to get the title shot, and AJ went out to the outside of the ring and did commentary. Now, Owens survived the challenge. He survived the threat, beat Chad Gable with the pop-up powerbomb. And at this point, they're obviously setting up another match with him and AJ Styles for the U.S. title, and maybe this is something that could continue on all the way until SummerSlam. They'll probably face at Battleground and then maybe do the blow-off at SummerSlam is kind of what I'm hoping. We had Shinsuke Nakamura beating Dolph Ziggler in a pretty good one-on-one match. A lot of talk online right now about WWE's use of Shinsuke Nakamura and that they're potentially dropping the ball on him. A lot of people feel that he should be more of an attraction, not somebody that has to come out and do a segment every single week. Make his matches special. Make the fans feel that when they see him wrestle, they're watching, kind of a prize fighter, a Brock Lesnar type of guy. And WWE has miserably failed at doing that with Nakamura, but I don't think that was their intention. They want a guy that can wrestle 300 dates a year and do the house show loops and all that shit, and they're not interested in booking Nakamura in that way. But I agree that something's missing with Nakamura. He's still very over. Fans love his entrance, his 20-minute long entrance, and his theme song, and the whole character, and his strong style, and all that shit. But I kind of agree with the critics that say WWE should maybe rethink how they present Nakamura to the audience. We had Big E defeating Jimmy Uso in a one-on-one match. The issue between the Usos and the New Day is not over yet, and clearly they will be having another match for the tag team titles in the near future, probably Battleground. And the main event saw Jinder Mahal taking on Luke Harper, and Mahal won with a little bit of help from the Singh brothers. They distracted Harper just enough for Mahal to hit his finisher and get the pin there. Corbin even teased a cash-in. He came out right in the middle of the match to tease cashing in the briefcase, and when it comes to the teases, I don't mind them. I actually enjoy them, but I don't like the obvious teases. We knew that Baron Corbin was not going to come out there and cash in the briefcase on his very first night. They are going to drag this out a little bit. Battleground, SummerSlam, September pay-per-view, maybe even Survivor Series. I want to see Corbin hold on to this briefcase for a little while. When his music hit, I immediately said, absolutely no way. This is not when he's going to cash it in. He will probably cash it in on a babyface, I would imagine. Maybe Corbin holds the briefcase long enough for Jinder to drop the belt. A lot of rumors about John Cena right now as well. Of course, John Cena returns to SmackDown on July 4th. And a lot of people feel that it could be Cena to face Jinder Mahal for the title at SummerSlam. And that could very well happen, but there's also talk of John Cena being a free agent and potentially going to Raw to face Roman Reigns at some point, and that could be a big SummerSlam match as well. So I don't think it's a total done deal that John Cena will be facing Jinder Mahal for the title, but it's very likely, and Randy Orton is going to get another title match as well because he came out at the end of this thing after Mahal won, beat the hell out of everybody, beat the hell out of the Singh brothers, beat the hell out of Jinder, gave him his Randy Orton DDT on the outside of the ring with Jinder's feet on the guardrail. That was pretty cool. And eventually beat the crap out of the Singh brothers, and Mahal retreats through the crowd to get away from Randy Orton, and Randy Orton closes the show. So I guess we're going to get a match, one more match between these two guys, should be the blow-off at Battleground. And then after Battleground, we should find out what Jinder will be doing at SummerSlam. And yes, John Cena is a very good possibility there. So maybe John Cena is the one to defeat Jinder Mahal, and then Corbin cashes in on Cena. That's a possibility. But if it was up to me, I'd keep Cena away from the world title right now completely. Have him do that free agent thing, have him go to Raw, have him face Roman Reigns in a big icon versus icon match at SummerSlam or something like that. I'd much rather see that, I think, than have him just come back and be the American that defeats Jinder Mahal for the WWE title. I think it would be much more interesting if Cena had a big match against Roman Reigns. So there you have it. That's my opinions on this past week's Raw and SmackDown. Like I said, keep an eye out on the channel in the next day or two. You're going to get a relatively somber video, to be honest, commemorating, well, not commemorating, but I'm going to come up here and say a few words on the 10-year anniversary of the Chris Benoit murder-suicides. And, of course, I'm working on that Q&A as well that I hope to have to you very, very soon. So you guys leave all your comments and opinions and ideas on Raw and SmackDown and Great Balls of Fire and Battleground and SummerSlam and all the directions WWE could go in regarding everything I talked about in this episode. Feel free to give me some ideas below. I would love to read what all of you have to say. And keep a lookout in the next day or two for episode 438. I will talk to you guys very soon. Until next time, peace.